Gaurav, we touched upon leadership earlier. And historically, there's always been this sort of parent-child relationship between the head office and the GCC in India. But, as this builds and as we have said, these GCCs have evolved, and as you very correctly said, leadership is an important element. You talked about certain elements of leadership, and I think you used the words influencing as one of those. Yeah. But can you comment a little bit about what is the leadership gap right now in India when it comes to GCCs, and what is required to be done to address that gap so that these companies are more future-proof compared to where they are today?
Yeah. No, great question, Subir. So, it's very clear that there's a mindset shift in terms of FSGCC's thinking when it comes to leadership. The mindset shift is from being cost centers to becoming capability centers or capability creators in many cases. Now, how do you become a capability creator? You become a capability creator when you have leadership innovation. And leadership innovation means that the leadership that you have within your FSGCCs in India is not just able to think today, but think and influence tomorrow and day after, together with digital agility, right? So you see various combinations today of COEs where they're looking for leaders who are actually co-leading on both the digital and the AI aspect as well as the business acumen. Now put that together in a context of a FSGCC that's operating across many countries in the globe. So what kind of gaps does it create? Number one, the influencing part, which you just alluded to. Great domain expertise, but not enough capability to be able to speak to global stakeholders. When I say speak, I mean gravitas, I mean language, I mean sometimes the concept of even storytelling and articulation.
Yeah.
So I think that's the one big gap. The second big gap is what I would put in the realm of self-awareness and cultural differences. So how aware am I about my strengths and my areas of development when it comes to leadership? I may be a great leader in the Indian context because I understand that culture really well, but I may not be able to bring that same influence in another country because the cultural contexts are very different. And for no fault of mine, I've actually never been trained or experienced those cultural contexts. And therefore, you'd see a lot of GCCs in India actually prefer returning Indians. And the reason they prefer returning Indians is because there is cultural familiarity on both sides. But that is a very small population, but it's still a preference. And therefore, that cultural dexterity, the ability to understand and operate in 2 or 3 or 4 different cultures is actually the second big gap. The third big gap is it's not an area where FSGCCs have traditionally actually invested a lot, right? It's only in the last 3 to 5 years, particularly driven during COVID, when a lot of work which was traditionally never meant to come to India started coming to India and started getting performed really well. COEs got set up, and then suddenly this question came, right, we've got the stuff here, but we haven't got the leaders. So traditionally it's been an underinvested area. The investment has more been on the domain side rather than on the leadership and management side. Now is when a lot of organizations are actually catching up to it and realizing the importance of it. So these are the 3 gaps, and a lot of mature ones have actually started huge programs on these, including local programs and global programs, and actually in some cases customizing global programs to GCC requirements, because there is this concept of core and more. The basic concept of core leadership doesn't change, but the more here is around India office influencing stakeholders outside of India, which was never a part of core. So those are the 3 gaps in some ways that the GCCs are addressing it.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And of course, you're quite right that returning Indians could be a way of bridging that gap temporarily. And I couldn't agree with you more. But what about the importance of people that are sitting here getting an opportunity to serve out of a head office location as part of their leadership development?
Correct. Important. And, you'd hear a lot of narratives around India becoming the cradle of leadership. It's like a grooming ground, it's like a nursery, and, you take people out for a few years And again, that's actually happening a lot. COVID slowed it down, no doubt about it, but it's catching up back again. And this exchange of talent, actually you see a lot more India to outside India rather than from outside India coming here, which is the reverse of what was happening maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago. And that's exactly to your point, that cultural dexterity, unless and until you're positioned there, and unless and until you spent a couple of years or more, it's very difficult to understand. Textbooks can only teach you as much. So that's absolutely prime and center. In certain cases, there are also matrices. How many of the global leaders that are in India in global roles have actually gone outside and worked and come back?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know. And then plus, of course, most of the companies that are setting up GCCs today didn't really have an India business historically.
Correct.
And so no one sitting here can really understand what their products mean because they've never experienced their products as well. So some of these challenges can get addressed by having the reverse migration of people going from here there for a while and benefiting from building their leadership capability.
Correct.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.